Oh, good afternoon and welcome to our social media stream here on sportsradiokjr.com. It's the 12th Man Postgame Show brought to you by your local Steel Dealers. Yeah, let's hear the
Come on,
crowd.
let's go.
It's like this is like a typical 2020 crowd, right? At a
Yeah, it's
stadium.
like
We go
Century
like
Link.
this and you
Yeah.
hear nobody.
If the games are home, it's pump up nobody anyway. Let's go.
Oh, a game that at least for a good 3 quarters looked very unlike most Seahawk games this season, that we might be able to just sit back, kick the feet up, you just relax to a nice double-digit, maybe even 20-point win over a team that has won 4 consecutive games. But then, Slick, we realized, wait a sec, whoa, hold on a second. This is a Seattle Seahawk football game. Yeah. And Seattle Seahawk football games, unless you're playing the New York Jets, cannot end like that. They cannot end as easy 27-3 games, 23-10 games. No, they can't end like that. They have to go down to the final minute of the game, right, Slick?
Well, they don't. Certainly, they don't have to, but yet they do. God, that was my thought when we were going. It didn't have to be like this. It didn't have to be like that. But, I mean, night and day, the Seahawks team that you saw in the first half and really the 3 quarters and what you saw in the fourth quarter. But, hey, I was coming into this. We knew what kind of game, what a grinder. It was going to be a grinder type of game coming in. And so just any way you were going to be able to get this, if you got it, I don't care if you're facing Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins, that defense is legit you went against today. And so we've seen what happens when you go up against backup quarterbacks and running backs, but also a good defense. The Giants got this team a couple weeks ago. They didn't let it happen today. It got close, but they didn't let it happen today.
Absolutely. And, I'm going to put a lot of the onus for the Washington comeback on the Seahawks offense, not the Seahawks defense, because that Seahawks defense was on the field all but 6 minutes and 30 seconds of the second half. That is how long the Seahawks held the ball up until the point they were kneeling at the end, which I didn't count. But from the beginning of the third quarter until the time you got the stop on 4th down to win the game, the Seahawks offense was on the field for 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So, I mean, kudos to the defense. I thought the defense played very, very well today, and I would have said, I would have just left it at very well, because I was writing, literally at the second that you got the sack from LJ Collier on 2nd down, I was writing in my notes, man, just haven't seen enough push from the front 4 today. And then, boom, Collier, boom, Dunlap. I mean, those 2 plays ended the football game.
Yeah, gave it to you at the end. I mean, Dunlap on with a big sack in that situation. The second time he's done that since you brought him over. LJ Collier, he's picked little spots here and there along the season to make a couple of big plays.
Not a lot of plays, but big plays. Yeah.
Gave you what you need to keep them out of the end zone for from getting it in the end zone a third time. So it was enough. It was enough, which is all you needed today. And then the big test comes next week.
Big test comes next week. Now, how confident are you in what you saw today that they are more prepared to beat the Rams now than they were a month and a half ago whenever they played the first time?
Well, offensively, I mean, outside of a couple plays, we were like, that was interesting. It seemed a lot like what they did with the Jets, which was pretty vanilla. So I have a feeling it's going to get more exotic next week against the Rams, and they've put 2 against weaker opponents, overall opponents. They've put 2 kind of vanilla weeks back to back on tape. So it's another week where it takes a long time to get DK Metcalf involved, and I think you just feel that every time because you want to see him involved. You want to see him catch balls and run after catch and everything. But that was the case here. But a game where also, I mean, you took that ground game and ran it right down their throat. So that was encouraging.
I thought Washington had a worse chance to win when they went from Alex Smith to Dwayne Haskins, and I think I'm wrong about that. I'm looking back at this football game, and I don't think Alex Smith could have done what Dwayne Haskins did today. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Alex Smith's always been a mobile quarterback. I don't know how much of that he has now because of the situation with his leg and everything.
Sure.
But I mean, they definitely needed Haskins to be able to move around. I mean, the front four was getting some decent push, and you've got McLaurin and Sims and not a lot else. I guess Logan Thomas. He had almost 15 catches I think in this game. So. But you just didn't have consistent weapons down the field. So Haskins did need to buy that time and keep the ball moving, especially those couple of scoring drives that they had late. Now, I don't think Alex Smith would have been able to do that.
Fire up some comments here as you're watching the stream. Talk to us in the chat. You can talk to us 49451. Why does our offensive philosophy totally change when we build a lead? Why let up? And that is I'm grateful that popped up right there, Slickhawk, because I think the mentality of Seahawk fans, and I even saw it on Twitter during the beginning stages of the fourth quarter. Why did we get so conservative? Wait a second. The first 12, the 12 plays. Now we only ran 12 plays. The 12 plays from when it was 20-3 Seahawks to 20-15 Seahawks. 9 passes, 3 runs. The thought that it was conservative and we were sitting on the football is just dead wrong. They threw it 9 times, including an interception in 12 plays. It was not sitting on the lead. In fact, it went away from the philosophy that got you the 20 points in the first place, which was a 9 yards per carry running attack. And even if you pull out Russell Wilson's scramble and Carlos Hyde's big run, it was still a 5.5 yard per carry rushing attack, which is what got you a 17-point lead.
Well, he had one drive that started with a Chris Carson run that went for a -3 or -4 yards.
Yep.
So you were behind the sticks there, so you felt like you had to run. I think the first drive of that kind of iteration, you started out with some play action that moved the ball down, and then the next drive you had the interception. So, I don't know about the play calling mix. I didn't think the play calling mix was horrible. The execution wasn't really great on a lot of things they did. Not everything is not everything's play calling. Sometimes it's just the other team's trying to win too, and they made some good plays.
Well, I thought also, and something we can talk to Hugh about in the first half particularly. The absence of DK Metcalf. And that has bothered me I've pointed out this last week. Going into the week, he was 14th in the NFL in targets and number 1 in yards. That to me doesn't compute. A guy that's number 1 in yards, yeah, okay, maybe he's 6th or 7th or 8th in targets. Shouldn't be 14th in targets.
No.
And they looked at him one time in the entire first half. And I have no idea why. I'll ask Hugh. Maybe Hugh's going to tell me they had 4 guys blanketed all over DK Metcalf and they were just letting David Moore run wherever he wants. Okay, if that's the answer Hugh gives me, then I'll throw my hands up and say I apologize to Brian Schottenheimer. If it's anything short of that, that is an epic failure by both the offensive coordinator and the quarterback to not get the ball to your best player.
Well, a couple of those were designed plays, for David Moore. Designed to spring him. So those certainly fall on the coordinator. I thought that, we've had this discussion 2 or 3 different other games about DK Metcalf, no targets through the first quarter, yet not working him into the game. He's, through the air, he's your best offensive weapon. Now, it's not like Russell Wilson threw a lot in the first half, but you've got to look to get DK involved. You just have to, especially when, look, he's a young receiver. I would think we could agree he's had focus issues at times. Mm-hmm. You've got to keep him engaged in this game.
That's the word. And they threw to him with the one time they throw the little lateral out to him, the quick hitter lateral out to him. It's on a 3rd and 15. I'm like, okay, how about that play on a 3rd and 2? How about that play on a 1st and 10 where he's going to stumble forward for 4 yards if he just catches the ball within a second of Russell Wilson snapping the ball. And they ran it to him one time and it was on a 3rd and 15, a gain of 4.
Yeah. Now, it did almost win you the game against the Cardinals had it not been for a David Moore hold. But but if those plays are going to happen, I want them to happen to DK. I don't want to see him happen to David Moore. I want to see DK because, look, you can either make a man miss or run a guy over, and just depending on their defensive alignment, he could be off to the races after that. So you just don't know.
Pretty pleased with the job the Seahawks offensive line did today. You're out without Upati most of that game. You're without Brandon Shell, your starting right tackle, and you had some pretty nice performances from those two spots in the backup positions.
Yeah, my key coming in, we do non-cliche keys on the morning show. My no cliche key was to keep running at them, to just keep Montez Sweat and Chase Young, keep those guys back on their heels a little bit, and and let the passing game, the play action passing game work. But and they did that, especially in the first half. I mean, you saw the big runs, obviously had the 50-yard to Carlos Hyde, but they kept at it. Chris Carson was running hard. Hyde obviously running hard, and so that kind of 1-2 punch was good to see Rashad Penny out there. But I think that that you were so willing to, like I said, run at them. I mean, do it old school, run at them, even if the run's not working, just because against this defense, I think that's what you had to do for this game. Against this team, this game, I wouldn't say that for most games, but this time, I think that was the philosophy and it was working, and it kept I think kept Russ's shirt clean.
I've seen enough from this defense now to believe that they are for real. And what I mean by for real is top half of the NFL for real. Not top 5, not even top 10, but top half of the NFL, good enough that if your offense is truly a top 5 offense, which we think hopefully it is, that you can be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I'm going to give you some numbers here. Now, we've heard a million times this week. Last 5 games, 16.2, right? Points again. I mean, we've repeated that a billion times. Well, I took it one step deeper than that on Friday, and I'll add today's numbers into that. I looked back at those 5 games, and not just to see how many points we'd allowed, but how many points did we allow versus what that team averaged on the season, right? Because that's a true indicator. What you're holding them to under their average, right? Arizona averages 28 points a game. They scored 21. Rams averaged 25 a game. They scored 23. Philly averages 21 a game. They scored 17. Giants average 18 a game. They scored 17. Jets average 14 a game. They scored 3. Washington averages 22 a game. They scored 15. The Seahawks have now held 6 consecutive opponents under, and in some cases significantly under, their scoring average for the season.
That is encouraging. I look at it like when I took algebra in high school, because I think we all, there's parts of math that everybody struggles with, right? Yep. So they had us doing one kind of thing, whether it's squaring integers or whatever, and maybe I struggle with that. So the first couple units of the math class I struggled with. All right, but now they're bringing in polynomials, and I got that, man. I can FOIL all day long. Give me the polynomials. So the second half of the course or whatever, I'm like, okay, things are buzzing. I've figured this math thing out.
There you go.
Well, next week is the final exam.
That is.
What are you offensively? What are you defensively? The Los Angeles Rams are your final exam. And we're going to, all the questions we asked are, is it because of a weak opponent, or is it because actually we've improved? That's our exam. So we're finally going to get that answer next week, and we're going to know who this team is going into the playoffs.
And it's an exam you've taken 11 times, and you've failed 8 of them. I mean, and that's going to be a number you're going to.
It's more like a driver's test.
That's going to be a number that you're going to hear over and over and over again. 3-8, 3-8, 3-8 in the last 11 games against the LA Rams. It has been really question here. I don't understand for what Mike is saying here. Elephant in the room, Ken Norton. Maybe you can address that. What's the elephant in the room?
Well, I mean,
the defense has been really, really good for 6 games, and he was getting killed 2 months ago. Is that the elephant in the room, or what's the elephant in the room?
What he's saying is they gave up those 2 drives toward the end of the game, almost a third, nearly lost the game there. So, that's going to be a lot of what people are looking at is just how that second half, how that fourth quarter went, and you had a lead and nearly squandered. I think a lot of people are going to look at Washington being a weak team, an NFC East team that should be defeated easily. I think a lot of people looked at Washington like they looked at the Giants, like they looked at the Jets, even though we know, you and I know that's not the case. And so the fact that you got up on them and let them back in the game, I think a lot of people are going to not be happy with that.
Mike says, well, man, you just don't get it. We run a soft defense. It's not going to work in the playoffs. Hey, it was 20-3 at the end of the third quarter. Okay. You're going to change your defense a little bit when you're up 17 points. We've seen it at the Atlanta game. We've seen it in the Miami game. We've seen it in the Cowboy game. You may not like it, Mike, But that is what's going to happen. All right. And in the Atlanta game and the Miami game and the Cowboys game and this game, guess what? They won every single damn game. Okay. So I'm kind of sick and tired, to be perfectly honest, with people ripping on a Seahawk defense who dominates for 3 consecutive quarters, is left hanging out there to dry because their offense sucks in the second half. And then the fingers are pointed at Ken Norton because they're playing zone defense, catch him and tackle him and wrap him up and let the clock run. I mean, I'm sorry, I've heard it all year and I just don't get it. This defense has been as good as any in the NFL the last 6 weeks. And I don't see any room for getting pissed off at this defense. You want to point fingers today, you point on the offensive side of the ball, not the defense. Well,
and that's just it, is that, I mean, in those 3 drives, you plan on your offense picking up some first downs. And so that's why you do, it's a 17-point lead. The offense has shown you no ability to really, I'm talking to Washington offense now, to really make things difficult on you. And so, yeah, you think, okay, we're going to play some zone. We're going to let them run some clock and you're going to win the game, and you kind of snuff them out, suffocate them. But to go along with that, you have to have the offense, running the ball, throwing the ball, doing whatever, moving the ball down the field, taking time off the clock. And then you're looking at, your typical 2-score, 10, 13-point win. But the offense didn't do that. So you kept giving chances to Washington. Look, the whole plan is to make them take 6-7 minutes to move down the field when you're in that kind of defense. And those were long drives.
Yes.
They're taking a long time. But when you don't pick up the first downs or don't add to the score, then that's making it more difficult. It's easy because they're out there and it's easy to put the blame on the defense in those situations, but you'd really like to see the offense give them more help.
Well, Hugh missed my rant there, for better or for worse. So we'll let cooler heads enter the building. More logical heads, more intelligent football minds. Hugh Millen joins us here on the post-game show presented by Steel. And what I was kind of going off on, Hugh, was it was a texter there on our Facebook page that was all ticked off about the defense and how the defense let Washington back in the game. And I'm just shaking my head and saying, wait a second, the offense was on the field for 6 minutes in the second half. The defense was hung out to dry, and of course they're going to play a different defense up 20-3 in the fourth quarter than they played in the first 3 quarters of the game. Now, am I off my rocker, or do I have a point there?
Well, I think first of all, when you talk about time of possession, that's a everybody thing, and obviously the offense plays their role, but the defense has to get off the field, and so I would say that 50-50, and really I think as far as the issues, well, first of all, I'm going to preface by saying I would want my first comments to be that when you win in the NFL on the road, now I know there weren't fans in the stadium, but I still hold to you travel 3 time zones away, you get a win, you don't have any significant injuries to my knowledge.
DJ Dallas would be
DJ Dallas, yeah, right, but you could describe whether he's significant. I mean, he's not a key starter.
Right. When you said significant, I thought you meant serious injury, but you're meaning significant playing time.
I'm being callous in terms of
poor DJ. We apologize.
I'm just thinking Seahawk perspective. But, it was a significant injury to a debatably significant player. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
So my first thoughts would be like, hey, you won the football game. This team beat the 49ers. They beat the Steelers, who were undefeated. This was a game you could have lost. And if you had played the way you did against the Giants, maybe you would have lost. This whole stretch, it was just an effort to get to the situation where you had to play the Rams. So you could have been looking forward to playing the Rams next week. So on balance, if you'd have told me this morning that you win 20-15, and there's no significant players that are hurt, I'd say I'll take that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right? And it was probably a score that most people anticipated, right around the score most people would have anticipated.
Yeah. And I think, we all kind of bring some of our thoughts, Dick, and I know you've been kind of defending the defense more than most throughout the year. So I think that you probably have an inclination
That's fair.
to see it through a lens that is more defensive. So if you ask me my opinion, probably not the answer you want, but I would say both are at fault. If you want to get into, the defense, they backed off, and you would also say that the offense had a more difficult challenge. This was a 6-7 Redskin team that's still playing for the division win. Are they a good football team? No, but they're not a typically unmotivated football team at this time of the year because the strange circumstances involved in the NFC East. So you have that piece, but then you just say, answer this question in 1 second. Is Washington's all we understand they're not a good football team, but is their defense better or their offense better going into the game? Right.
Defense.
So you would expect that the Seahawks defense, when given a 20-3 lead against a relatively poor offense with a backup that's just been a mess. Remember now, they didn't just bench Dwayne Haskins for Alex Smith. It was, what's the kid's name, Josh? There was another quarterback that his name escapes me right now, but he had played.
Allen played.
Yeah.
It was not Josh Allen. It was
Kyle Allen.
Kyle Allen, yes.
Kyle, so there's obviously a lot of issues with Dwayne Haskins, and we saw it with his decision making. Those 2 interceptions were brutal from a Redskin standpoint, absolutely inexcusable. Like there's some interceptions that are worse in a quarterback meeting room, where you say, okay, that stuff happens. I see what you saw, or maybe just a slightly errant throw. But those 2 interceptions, the first one was just a horrible decision by Haskins out on the perimeter, trying to force it into. He had no chance of getting a completion. He threw a duck. I mean, that was an ugly, bad interception. The second one was probably a little bit more forgivable in terms of it was a nice throw, and I could see why he thought he had it. But he just didn't read the zone. Cornerback just waiting for a crossing. You got a deep crossing route. You gotta be waiting for that. But getting back to the point, I would say Seattle, what they did. Yes, they backed off the gas, and they deserve some, if you want to say, criticism. Again, I'm from a mindset, be happy with this win. They did enough to win the football game, and I'm good with it. But
when you say back off the gas, do you mean intensity, scheme, or both? Because you could back off intensity and scheme too by just playing more soft zone, giving up those 8-yard passes, tackling.
Yeah, in intensity. I mean, I would say some of it's scheme. I was disappointed that Seattle didn't make an adjustment to the slant route. There was basically 3 routes that Haskins completed all game. He had the shallow cross. He had the stick out route to the tight end. What's called the 5 to 7 yard out route by an inside receiver is called a stick route in NFL terminology, and then the slant route on some of those big third downs. And so I thought that if you're going to defend the slant and the defense, they did. The corner can be more aggressive. He can kind of ride the slant, and also the inside defender, what we call the number 2 defender, counting outside in. The number 2 defender in that curl zone, he's got to be able to make a play on the slant. So all those big plays, those conversions, those were slant routes on the long yardage situations. So you get out of a 2nd and 21, or I should say from the Seahawks perspective, you let the Redskins out of a 2nd and 21, and on 3rd down you give up the slant and the hideous call.
Oh, on KJ! My God!
It's a dumb rule to begin with. It was horribly misapplied. I mean, KJ's trying to put his elbow down. The offensive player is dropping his head 20, 25 inches, in a split second before. You just can't play defense the way they're expecting them to play sometimes. But nonetheless, you let them out of a 2nd and 21, and on 3rd and 11, counting the penalty, they give up 25 yards. But I'll close with this, and it's the good note because it's sincerely how I feel. That sequence they had that led to the 4th and a mile Hail Mary, right? We're going to be talking about the 2 sacks. Collier gets the sack, and Carlos Dunlap had a Superman sack that is just unbelievable. That's one of the great sacks in the history of the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
When you consider how early in the down he won it, and just dominating that right tackle, and then diving over the top. Now, I'm sure there's more important sacks in terms of playoff games and what have you. So I'm excluding the magnitude. But if you just said, okay, here's an NFL defensive end that's going to dominate an NFL right tackle early in the down, just absolutely put him on roller skates and then dive over the top of him Superman style. That third down sack was incredible. But I want to draw attention to the first down of that series because they threw the ball on that tight end seam. You got a tight end who's is killing you, double-digit catches. I'll have to look up how many catches, but he had a seam route in a single high defense. And you got Jordan Brooks. The way they asked them to do that's a tough ask, where you have what's called the backside curl defender away from the strength of the formation. He's going to run a deep crossing route, almost like a bender post. And you're asking Jordan Brooks from the opposite side of the ball to read the play, turn and run and get underneath that. If he doesn't make that play,
touchdown.
I think it's a touchdown inside of a right around a minute.
Yep.
I'll get the play-by-play on exactly what the time on that was, but that was a hell of a play. So while you're talking about those two sacks, don't forget the play that Jordan Brooks made on that, because in my mind, that was just as much of a game winner as anything.
I made the comment to Slick earlier that going into the game, I thought it was a downgrade for Washington to go from Alex Smith to Dwayne Haskins. But upon further review and watching how Haskins played, particularly in the second half, I'm not so sure it was. Was Haskins able to do some things mobility-wise, arm strength-wise, that maybe Alex Smith wouldn't have been able to do in that second half?
No, I don't believe that at all.
Okay.
I think over the course of 60 minutes, I think Alex Smith gave you a better chance to win. I mean, the numbers are staggering. Actually, they showed it on the telecast. We talked about it on Friday or Thursday, whatever. When you look at Alex Smith and his record, both with the Redskins and at the Chiefs before their Chiefs were 2-14 the year before he got there.
Yep.
And they go under him, they go 11-4 the very next year. He had 3 out of his 5 seasons with the Chiefs. He won exactly 11 games. I mean, even the very last year where he was going to give way to Pat Mahomes, he was 9-6, and then they just started Mahomes at the end. So he missed an opportunity to be 10-6. He would have had four double-digit win seasons. And then when you look at what the Redskins do when he's not in the lineup, I think it was 6-24, whereas he's got a 6-4 record. I might be off by 1 or 2. I had the numbers on Thursday and Friday. I don't have them in front of me. So no, in my opinion, and the numbers strongly buttress my claim, I think the Redskins would have been better off with Alex Smith. Now, there was a portion at the end of that game that Dwayne Haskins got hot and he felt good.
Yeah.
But in the end, he still missed some plays at the end. And no, I think Seattle absolutely caught a break by getting to play again, not just the Redskins backup, but in many ways, the Redskins have declared not just with Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden a year ago was putting this guy as a healthy scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you got Ron Rivera and a new offense coordinator, whatever, and they have Kyle Allen in front of them.
So two coaching staffs basically.
So two coaching staffs at various times have said to their owner, the guy that you picked, I think it was the 15th pick in the first round. He was middle of the first round. The guy that you picked is our third string quarterback. But he got hot today, and he comes into the league not without talent, and he showed that for a little bit. But I thought that was, I was talking to my buddies. We watched the game with some good friends, and when things got gnarly there, it's like, hey, it's not just the quarterback who has to be clutch. The football team has to be clutch. The punter has to be clutch. You can't miss tackles. Like it was at that time of the game, up by 5, that Seattle was going to have to play clutch, and somebody was going to have to make a play. And I'm looking at the play that they missed down the middle, where I'm lauding Jordan Brooks. That was a minute and 18 to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if they hit that, now you can say Russell would have gone down and kicked the field goal, and maybe that would have been the field goal to tie, right?
Tie or win, yeah, depending on what they did on the 2-point
Washington
conversion.
would have gone for 2.
Yeah.
So it might have been just the field goal to tie. Anyways, we don't want to have to draw the scenario. Maybe Russell would have done it. Maybe he wouldn't have. He's done it often in his career, but oftentimes
Not every
he has not
time.
done it in his career. And so I just think when I studied that and what I'm trying to convey to you as the quote unquote analyst here is the idea that when you play that cover 3, the guy who has the hook zone, you think of 4 guys underneath and the 2 inside of 4, they're called hook zone defenders. The wide guys are called curl flat players. When you're the hook zone defender opposite that crossing route, you have got to hunt that and get underneath that thing. And for a rookie to do that in a clutch situation, man, I don't know if guys, I know Puckett gives his what does he give? He gives the
shots. So he gives shots.
Right?
Yeah,
right. Slick,
give a shot to Brooks, huh?
hey, Slick, will you do me a favor? When you guys go through that segment, will you give a shot for Brooks on, if nothing else, that play?
We'll hand him out a shot.
That might have been, if that was a game-saving play, think about how that extends out. You don't have to contort yourself intellectually to say that that's a season-saving play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to stretch too far out on a limb and say, hey, Jordan Brooks on that play saved the season. It wasn't like it was game, or week 17 with the playoffs on the line and the last play of the game. There's a lot of elements that were missing to make that claim, but darn good play and a difficult one for a veteran, let alone a rookie.
We'll get an update on what's going on with the Seahawks from the locker room from Slick in just a few moments here. Steel dealerships, independently owned and operated with over 10,000 dealers nationwide. There is one near you, so support a small business in your community. Visit your local Steel dealer today. Real Steel, find yours. Hugh Millen, Slick Hawk, Dick Fain with you. It's the 12th Man postgame show, and Hugh, a lot of chatter both with Slick and I before you got on, and also on the text lines about the usage or misusage, as the case may be, of DK Metcalf, particularly early in this football game. 1 target for DK Metcalf in the first half. Now, the running game was going. It was clicking. They were averaging 9 yards a carry, and you know how much I love that run game, and they had it going in the first half. But that being said, I still want to see 14 get more than 1 ball go his way until late in the football game. So was it something Washington was doing to prevent that, or is it simply just Seattle not looking his way?
No, it's the ball should have gone to DK Metcalf. And I made a pledge kind of about a month ago. You guys were on the air with me, and I made my own pledge. I disclosed it to you guys that, the way Troy Aikman said, the Seattle Seahawks don't even know how good DK Metcalf is. And I'm watching the tape, and I study the all 22. And honest to God, I'm going to say this is going to sound possibly a little bit wonky, but I study more Seahawks tape than the Seahawks do. I study more Seahawks tape than Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. I'm not kidding you, because I know how the NFL works. You watch the game that you just played, and there's a point where you say, okay, now you watch it once, and then you move on. Me, I'm a nerd. I'm all week. I'm studying. It's Thursday, and I'm studying last Sunday's game. I'm sitting, midnight. My wife's asking me, hey, when are you coming to bed? Well, I got to see the Seahawks, one more time. Haven't you already seen them 7 times this week? So I study this stuff, and I'm like, there's so many times where he is open. He has single coverage. Russell Wilson isn't looking for him. Brian Schottenheimer isn't calling plays for him. And now I haven't studied the all 22 yet. So this is my preliminary, emphasize the word preliminary opinion. As I was watching that, there was a lot of single coverage out there, a lot of single coverage. And I said that unless DK Metcalf is targeted 10 times a game, and I've looked at the numbers of all the receivers to say whether that's an outlandish proposition. Unless DK Metcalf is targeted 10 times a game, I'm going to get salty and fussy on the radio. And he was targeted 6 times, and it's a mistake. They are not reaching their highest potential as a football team if they are targeting DK Metcalf 6 times. It's a problem. It's a problem for you, Brian Schottenheimer. Get your head out of your ass and call the freaking plays for DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson, throw the ball to DK Metcalf. Pete Carroll, you are the man in charge. You dictate these 6. They are your underlings. You are their superior. You ordered them to get the ball to DK Metcalf. This is the way it's got to go for Seattle to win the Super Bowl and to reach their highest potential, if the Super Bowl is indeed that potential. So yeah, there I'm going to go. I'm going to do it every freaking week.
Good. I'm going to get you. I'm going to allow you. I love that rant. I'm going to allow you to do that rant tomorrow on the afternoon show when you're on with me. I'm going to let you do it Tuesday again if you want to do it, and I'm sure Slick is going to let you do it at 7:00 tomorrow. So you're well warmed up. That was kind of like a dress rehearsal, Hugh. Now you're going to be, the curtain's going to open on Monday morning and Monday afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, and you can just belt it out, brother. Because I think everybody wants to hear that, and everybody agrees with you.
That statement is defensible. And the more you watch the all 22, the more now there are times, hey, last week against the Jets, I said, not just did they roll the cover, meaning have roll the coverage with the cornerback jamming and then playing that flat and then a safety over on the top. Teams will do that. But usually when they do that, the safety is covering half the field. The Jets did what's called actually 3 cloud, or some people call it 3 kick. They took the safety and he didn't just have half of the field on that side. He had a third of the field, meaning he could rotate all the way outside the numbers. That is as aggressive a double coverage as you can have. And in that case, I would not be saying this. I would be saying, guys, they're rolling not just rolling covers, they're hard rolling him to 3 cloud. And then I would say, you can't throw it to him. Unless you move him inside or move him to the field instead of the boundary. There's things you can still try and do. I'm not saying you can't get the ball to him, but I'm gonna back off that kind of claim. Again, my preliminary, because I'm not going to be definitive until I watch the all 22, and I'll have that for sure with you on Tuesday, Dick. But I've got enough experience to have a pretty good hunch that they made a big mistake. Slick, that ball was targeted to him 6 times. It should have been double that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to hold to that. And I could grab a laser pointer and we could walk through the damn tape. I'm certain of it. I'm not 100% certain to that until I see the tape. But as I sit here, I can say with at least 80-90% conviction. I saw the single coverage. Hell, I'm seeing the times. Like, why is he not throwing to DK? He's not looking at DK. There's opportunities there. He's on that. He's on the boundary side, meaning the tuck defender. What's the tuck defender? It's the number 2 defender. You count outside in. The corner is always number 1, no matter how deep he is. The safety is never number 2. It's the next shallow defender. That's usually the weak side linebacker, the weak side nickel. The number 2 defender is tucked in close to the ball, and he's out there one-on-one with no safety out there. That is what you call in this business single coverage. Go attack that dude.
Slick, what do you
do it?
Yeah, what are you seeing on Twitter right now from the Seahawks locker room, and also some texts?
Just a couple of news items. Of course, the injury to DJ Dallas looked really scary, but x-rays came back negative. So he did not have a break in that ankle. So good news for DJ Dallas. Obviously don't know at this point what the recovery is going to be. And then secondly, at the right cornerback spot, DJ Reed, it looks like is actually going to have an opportunity to hang on to that starting spot, even with the return of Quentin Dunbar and even with the return of Trey Flowers.
Compete, Hugh. All you got to do is compete, and DJ Reed is competing on defense and special teams. For my money, he's the player of the game today. I thought he was fantastic.
Well, he did a lot of good things, and I certainly think he's an upgrade over David Moore.
In the punts,
in return, I just think he has a more aggressive mentality. And
is he an upgrade over Dunbar?
Well, the Dunbar we saw against the Rams was brutal.
Yeah.
He was also hurt, though. I mean, is there a Dunbar that's healthy that you remember?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say comma, but he was hurt.
Yeah.
So no, I would say I think, put it this way, whatever opinion you have, I think you should probably say that you're close on it, because Trey Flowers has had his times too, both good and bad. And Trey Flowers was his best against Buffalo. Quentin Dunbar, as we said, against the Rams, should have never been out there. That might happen in college. What you saw Quentin Dunbar, that hobbled. That can happen in college, where you're sitting there going, dude, you got to suck it up. Because the drop-off, if you're a baseline 100, I'm not saying that there's not something better than 100. Deion Sanders is better than 100. But if you're 100 as the baseline, the next dude down from you is a 35. And so even you out there on one leg is better than the next guy we would put in. That should never happen in the NFL. If that happens in the NFL, then that's a mistake with your personnel management, because there's guys on the street. There are literally guys on the street that are working out every day that could have played better than Quinton Dunbar. And I'm being totally literal in that statement. So, and I'm not holding that against Dunbar. Hell, you want to give him a bouquet of flowers for being a yeoman and being heroic and playing without a leg? Fine. But meanwhile, it's like the Discovery Channel when you watch the nature shows. The carnivore is going to find the weakest, youngest, most ill, incapable of the herbivores, and he's going to eat them. And
where's David Attenborough when you need him?
Right? Yeah, right. When have you ever seen the carnivore go after the youngest, most virile, robust of the herbivores? They don't do that. They go after the weak. And so the Rams with Sean McVay, they're not gonna, they're just gonna say, what is up with Quinton Dunbar? That's their problem.
Yeah.
That's their problem. We're gonna. It's our obligation to attack. And so let's see Dunbar and whether or not we can play a little better defense out there.
Well, we've spent a bunch of time. Speaking of the Rams and attacking, just so you guys know,
getting worked.
10-0 Jets, Hugh.
And Jared Goff
in the second quarter, 8 minutes left in the second quarter, and the Rams are down 10-0.
Jets are knocking again.
I would probably bet straight up.
Yes,
steak dinner on the Rams.
Absolutely, I think that they'll come back. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking on the defensive side of the football, both positives and negatives. Offensively, the quarterback. I mean, Russell Wilson, 18 of 27, 121. A touchdown, an interception, a passer rating of 73. Didn't have to do a lot in the first half and did nothing in the second half in the limited amount of snaps that they had in the second half. Talk to me about the interception. Who's that on, Hugh? What'd you see there?
Well, I think obviously Russell was outside the pocket. He was trying to extend the play. He allowed the ball to be batted down. There are some batted plays where let's say you're going to catch and you're going to throw a slant over the middle. In those instances, if the defensive lineman who's rushing, he happens to get a hand up late, you say, hey, that's how would the quarterback have any way of knowing or avoiding, I should say, that play? But when you're out there extended, if you allow a player to get his hand on the ball, then it falls more on the quarterback. So I can remember just a meeting going, Russ, what are you doing on that? What was the down on that? There was just something. What was my reaction? I got to check my note, but
I feel like it was second. It was first or second down.
It was second 8 at the 27. But no, that was. I'm sorry. That was one of Haskins'
interceptions. Yes.
Yeah.
It was 1st and 10 at the 39 of Washington. So they were basically almost in field goal range.
So honestly, when I see interceptions, almost always the first thought I have is what's the down? Because it's more of a sin to throw a interception on first down. And then when you're at the 39, at that point, you're at call it a 57-yard field goal, which Seattle probably would not attempt. But you only need a few more yards with a red hot kicker, 6, 7, 8 yards where you got to really feel good about your field goal opportunity. And so to be that close to points and to have an interception on first down, I'll say this, in the quarterback meeting rooms I've been in, that's a double minus for the quarterback.
Hugh, what did you take away from what you saw from the offensive line today? Because they were down 2 guys. They were down Upati, they were down Shell, and Russell was not under siege very much, at least in that first half. Maybe that was just because the running game was going so well.
I would give them. I want to give them an A-, maybe B+ would be a better, just because they were not able to dominate, like you said, the time and possession and I mean, but they rushed for 181 yards. Now Russell had 52 of those on a really bad play by the I was going to say the Washington defense. I thought that the pass rush of the Redskins. Oh shoot! Here I got it.
That's all right.
Apologize. I thought that Washington's pass rush was going to make much more of an impact on the football game. And
absolutely.
Chase Young, and I thought it would be one of those games where everything's just collapsing on Russ, and a couple 3 sacks early in the down where you had no chance, and you're just punting, and you're just saying, well, the offensive line, it's just cost of doing business type of thing. So I thought the line did better than I would have anticipated going into the game.
No question about it. Slick, we talked about it earlier. I mean, this offensive line did what they needed to do. They opened up some holes in the running game and beautiful blocking on that Carlos Hyde play. And I'm kind of with you. I thought if Schottenheimer decided today was going to be the day that he was going to 5-step drop, try to beat this team down the field with his arm, it was going to be a long, long day. But he didn't do that. And I killed Schottenheimer for his second half play calling, but I thought his first half play calling coming out of the gate was great.
Well, I thought they did a good job of setting them up, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. I thought the running game was going to be so important to setting up what they did later on. I wish we had seen more success in the second half as far as the passing game goes, from the paying dividends from the runs that you ran in the first half. It didn't really work out that way, but at the very least, you were able to keep them back on their heels a little bit, so that when the times you did want to pass, they weren't pinning their ears back and coming out of Russell Wilson knowing you were going to pass. I thought that was played a big role in keeping his shirt clean.
Well, I would say the biggest problem that I had in my study, and as I said, I'm an admitted kind of football nerd, and I'll read statistical analysis, and I'll do breakdowns myself, right? And there's only 3 statistics that I've ever heard credibly advanced as the number one statistical correlation to winning. One is turnover and net turnovers. We all know that. We've been hearing that since we've been football fans. Yep. Whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win the game. Okay, so there's a lot of data to support that. Okay. Another one is yards per pass attempt, yet net yards per pass attempt. In the National Football League, there are studies, and they're backed by data that say, look, that's the highest correlation to winning. And there's only 3. The third one is net explosive plays. And explosive play is usually defined as 20 yards in the passing game. Some people say 15, and it's usually defined as a 10-yard run in the running game, or 12-yard run. About that, right? So Seattle today, if you take their longest plays, they only had 2 plays over 15 yards. Yeah, that was both runs. 50. Obviously, that's an explosive play. And you had Russ's 38-yard scramble. But the longest pass play they had was 15 yards. And
I've never seen Russ ever with a 4.5 yard per attempt.
Yeah.
Never. And I don't think he's had one. I mean, I would have remembered that had I saw that.
Sure. And so they were just completely devoid of big plays in the passing game at all.
Why?
And I'll be able to piece it together when I watch it a little bit more tonight, because
I'll ask you tomorrow.
The TV copy, it's funny because doing a TV copy, it's like a crossword puzzle, because sometimes you can only see 9 guys on the defense, but you look at the 9 and you say, well, if those 9 are doing that, then the remaining 2 are doing this. Right. And so that's how a guy like me has to analyze that. But you can get a lot out of that, but then you really get the full picture, obviously, when you watch the all 22 later Monday. So I don't want to get over my skis and just shoot from the hip. If I were to give you a lot, I cool. couldn't give you something more. But I can tell you this in the immediate aftermath of the game, that obviously the big plays weren't there. And if you're talking about the Seahawks being the very best football team that they're capable of being, they have to get more big plays in the passing game. You just can't operate without getting some chunk plays that usually are the way to get points in the NFL.
Final thoughts from you, Hugh, before we let you go, because you got a lot of film to watch and you've got a busy, busy week. You're on tomorrow at 7 a.m. You're on with me at 3 o'clock tomorrow, and you're on with me at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. So we're gonna work. And Ian, we're at 2:00. We're going to work you to the bone the next 48 hours. So we're going to let you go here after your final thoughts on this one.
Well, I'll just finish where I started. I think we can do a lot of hand wringing, and for those of us who've been lifelong Seahawks fans, I think all of us are in that group here. We can remember where we would be delighted with any win, let alone a win on the road, let alone a win 3 time zones away. Remember those eras where Seattle had all that struggle, and you'd look at every 10 a.m. game and go, "Oh boy!"
Yep, exactly.
And Seattle over their last 12 games is 11-1 in the 10 o'clock time zone. Yeah, obviously 10 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got to take somebody out there, Hugh. Great, great stuff. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
You hurry up and start studying the tape, so you're ready to go tomorrow.
So, Slick and Chuck and Buck, I'll talk to you at 7 a.m. and I'll talk to you at 3 p.m. tomorrow. All right, man?
Wait. Hold on. Before Hugh goes.
Yeah.
Hugh. How long has Kale been working on popping dudes on?
Popping dudes,
man.
Shed the block and then erase the man, Kale. Shed the block and erase the man.
He hasn't played defense since 7th grade, but somewhere or another, it's in his reset. Yeah, that was a fun play for him. Yeah,
great stuff. We'll talk about that too tomorrow. Okay. Hey, thanks to you. Appreciate it. Slick, you and I will wrap things up here over the next few minutes, kind of talk about big pictures. And he was exactly right. I mean, we should be – I know it's hand-wringing to watch a team go from 20-3 to 20-15 and damn near 22-20, but the bottom line is it's another clinched playoff spot for the Seattle Seahawks. It's another double-digit win season. We are just so fortunate because you grew up in the freaking doldrums. I mean, you grew up in the freaking Bearing era, man. At least I had a Chuck Knox that I can remember and kind of draw from and say, okay, the Hawks were pretty good for a stretch when I was a child. Yeah. You had nothing there in the 90s, man, until Mike Holmgren came around.
I was born in 84, and the first season I can remember is 92. So
that's bad news, brother.
Tells you what I came into this world knowing is Seahawks football. So the fact that, I mean, you wake up, in September after Labor Day, that week 1, and you're automatically a Super Bowl contender. That's just a cool thing and something I never would have dreamed of as a kid. So, this franchise is in a really good place. They've obviously got the quarterback that can take them to special places. They've just gotta capitalize. And I think that, we believe the defense has gotten them at least to where they can do some things and play with some of those tougher teams in the NFC in the playoffs. So we'll see next week where we're at, if we are where we think we are, and hope we are, and go from there and right into the playoffs. But yeah, another playoff season. Love it.
And I think we're seeing, and I tweeted this out yesterday, and I'll just reiterate, we are seeing an NFC with absolutely no great teams. 0. There are a few very good teams, and I would put the Seahawks in that mix of very good teams. But you are talking about a Packer team that, I mean, the Panthers yesterday gave you a recipe on how to defend that Packer team yesterday. Okay, you give up a few yards up the middle of the run to Aaron Jones. You give up some dinky dunk stuff. Do not get beat over the top. The Packers scored 14 offensive points that game. 14. And then you've got a Bucs team today that ended up with 31. But my God, they were scoreless at halftime? Or
yeah, the Bucs had done that a couple times. As far as the Packers, that's easier said than done. The Packers scare the hell out of me. That's that's a really good football team.
And I think they're the best. I think they're probably
the tangle with.
I think they're probably the best team. But my point is, they're not elite. They're not a great football team. And you're the Saints, very good team. Are they great? I think they're really limited offensively. So the Rams, they're really limited, I think, offensively. They're 17th in the NFL in offense. When they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, they were 2nd in the NFL in offense. That was a different offensive football team 2 years ago than it is right now. So, I mean, that was a team that had Todd Gurley just rumbling for about 13 weeks of that season before he went down with injury. So, and that was just allowing Jared Goff to be the puppet that I think Jared Goff is. Now, Maybe you're going to tell me they got it in Cam Akers now. They got a second coming of Todd Gurley. Well, he ain't showing it right now because they're down 13-0 to the New York Jets, Jets, and we're going to become huge Jets fans over the next hour and a half, aren't we?
Yeah, of course we are. I don't know how well that's going to turn out for us, but I mean, yeah, the Rams are a little bit schizo. You just don't know which team's going to show up. I think it starts with Jared Goff. You know, a couple of the other teams you mentioned, the Saints, they've definitely had their struggles. Michael Thomas, he's not healthy.
Yep.
Drew Brees is just coming back, and so you know, it just seems like they always look good, but just something happens. They don't quite ever have it to pull it together. Packers, yes, Packers are, I think, are a really good team. You know, Seahawks are they're in the mix. They're in the mix right there. And so, you know, what can you do? Who do you match up against, and where do you play? I think those things are going to be important.
Well, the scoreboard right now has got the Jets leading the Rams 13-0 with 3:55 left to go in the first half. Cardinals are beating up on Shocky's Eagles 19-7. Chiefs up on the Saints 7-0. Now, these would be AFC losses for both the Saints and the Rams if they were to lose those games, and there's still a long way to go in those games. So they don't hold the same importance as if it were an NFC loss. We are still going, if the Seahawks want a number one seed, and it's still out there for them, we would still need the Saints and the Packers to lose one more NFC football game. So this one would not count for the Saints. We would still need for them to lose one more NFC game, because if you finish in a three-way tie at 12-4 with the Saints and the Packers, you are the number one seed due to combined, to the strength of the opponent. So that's what you need to hope for. You need to hope for one more Saints NFC loss and one more Packers NFC loss. Well, that's going to do it for us. Great stuff, man. Final thoughts from you, Slickhawk, and get us set up for your show tomorrow morning.
Man, that was a little dicier than I wanted to be at the end, but hey, that's just how Seahawks football is. We're in the playoffs, and big game next week, and I can't wait for that. So it's going to be an interesting week this week, by the way, with no Chuck Palin on the morning show. I'm going to be filling in. So Bucky joins me Tuesday, but tomorrow it's just me, myself, and I hanging out. Chris Kidd will be running things, and I'll bring on Greg Bell 7 o'clock. He was going to come on 7:20 after he spent more time watching film than the Seahawks. And 9 o'clock, we'll bring in Mike Holmgren for the 9 o'clock hour. So it's your normal Monday morning quarterback. You just don't have Chuck to kind of guide you. You have me instead. So
there you go.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm in the same boat as you, my man. Monday and Tuesday, I'll be flying solo with Hugh, though. However, he will come in and join us. We saw a Facebook post there. Is Hugh's KJR's best kept secret? Well, I would say he's best. I don't know if he's a secret. I mean, we kind of throw him all. I mean, he's kind of just the jack of all trades. We use Hugh, even though Hugh is 1,000 times better than David Moore. We use Hugh kind of like the Seahawks use David Moore. For some reason, they decide to get him the ball all over the field. I'm not sure why. I know why we get Hugh the ball, because Hugh can take the ball to the house whenever we get him, no matter if it's 7 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon with Ian. We can get him the ball, and he knows what to do with it. But, I'll be with Hugh tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We will have opponent audio recap, which I'm always happy that we're going to play that, because that means the Seattle Seahawks won. So we'll hear what it sounded like from the Washington football team broadcast.
Sure, it was really fun for them.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Kevin Shockey for running the things. Hugh, Slick, Dick Fan saying so long. Seahawks go to 10-4 on the season. They clinch a playoff spot once again, and now it's turning the focus to the LA Rams next week in the really de facto NFC West championship game. That's going to do it for us. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on 950 KJR.